The New York Rangers tie a franchise record with their 10th straight win. This time, a hard-earned 2-1 road victory against the Flyers. Plus, Matt Rempe continues to make an impact. Is he here for the long haul and/or the Stanley Cup playoffs?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1012 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So who's having some fun watching Ranger hockey recently? Obviously, they're on a heck of a run here. The craziest thing about this whole thing to me is that basically just how bad everything went in January. And now this team is on the verge of a potential perfect month of February. They have to beat the Jackets twice to do that, which is more difficult than it sounds. The Jackets do tend to play the Rangers tough. But it's right there for them. It's right on the table. And obviously the first of those two matchups is going to be happening a little bit later today between the Rangers and the Blue Jackets. But as far as this win against the Flyers, obviously very hard earned, kind of a blue collar, grinded out kind of a win. Igor Shesterkin continues to show himself to be the Vezina winning goalie from a couple of years ago that we all know and love. He's obviously enjoying the best streak of his career. And with the playoffs not too far away at this point, it's happening at a perfect time. And somebody else who's really made an impact for this Ranger team is, of course, Matt Rempe. He's kind of, even in the minors, he had a little bit of a cult following due to his ability and willingness to fight and obviously win a good amount of those fights. And him and Adam Edstrom, they obviously give the Rangers more size, more strength, more toughness. Edstrom, I'm sure he himself will drop the gloves if the occasion calls for it, but Matt Rempe has kind of stolen the show in recent games. I know a lot of Ranger fans really excited to have a player of this caliber on this team right now. And of course, once again in this game against the Flyers, Matt Rempe ends up in a fight on his first shift of the afternoon. This was a heavyweight duel with Matt Delorier. Just back and forth, both guys throwing haymakers, and a couple of people, on social media suggesting that this might be the fight of the year so far in the NHL. Now, I have not sat down and watched, every single fight that's happened this season across the board, but yeah, I got to believe it's at least in the running. Like I said, these guys, there wasn't really a lot of defense. It almost felt like a punching in the face contest where these guys are just throwing bombs and seeing who could stay on their feet the longest, and it was close. It went back and forth. I think both fan bases were kind of claiming victory for their guy here. I would give the edge to Matt Rempe. Of course, at the end, Delorier kind of fell down on top of Rempe, and that's always a little bit of a lasting image with some of these fights, but really, it doesn't mean that much. Both these guys had some battle scars, but especially Delorier, you could tell that Rempe got him good with a couple of those haymakers there. And, credit to the linesmen because they really let them have it out here. Obviously, it's kind of a judgment thing as far as when they step in, but it was such an even fight. And clearly, neither one of these guys wanted the officials to break anything up. So they let them have it out. When they fell down to the ice, that's when they, of course, broke it up. But got to figure, Matt Rempe being able and willing to do this and take on the toughest guy on whichever team the Rangers happen to be playing on that night, or in this case, in the afternoon, got to believe he's earning the respect of his teammates. And, a quick aside here, I'm surprised nobody else has mentioned this yet. I checked the Rangers schedule because I honestly could not remember if the Rangers had another game against the Washington Capitals this season. Unfortunately, they do not. And as far as why I might be talking about Rempe and wanting there to be another game between the Rangers and Capitals, I think most of you can figure it out. But just in case, Tom Wilson is on that team. Now, on one hand, maybe I should just let it go. On the other hand, though, Tom Wilson has never really had to answer for what he did, to Panarin all those years ago. So I would not be surprised if, between the Rangers and Caps next year, Rempe's on the team, which I can only assume he will be in one role or another. that might be happening. All these clips of Matt Rempe fighting right now might be nightmare fuel for Tom Wilson. So we'll see if that goes down next year. But for right now, again, Rempe obviously generating a ton of buzz for his physical play and his ability to throw haymakers in the face of opposing players. And the other thing that I thought about here too, that this does for the Rangers, Matt Rempe kind of exploding onto the scene here and obviously getting a lot of attention. This kind of gives the Ranger veterans and the established star players, the guys that are in their late 20s and even into their early 30s, it kind of gives these guys a little bit of a break, because right now, whether it's, all of us here that are, together on this podcast, or whether it's Ranger fans in general, whether it's beat writers or even some national reporters, this is getting a lot of attention from a lot of different people. And what this does for the Ranger veterans, gives them a little bit of a reprieve, gives them a little bit of a breather. They can, step back a little bit. Everybody's going to be talking to Rempe and what was going through your head during that fight. And of course, Rempe scored the game-winning goal in this game. So he got to do the post-game interview once this game was over with Emily Kaplan on the bench there. And I'm sure the Ranger veteran players, not that they can't handle the questions from the media and whatnot, but they've all been there and done that. I'm sure they're happy to, kind of wave Rempe onto the bench there and say, you go ahead, you take this post-game interview here. I'm sure they're happy to let the kid have the spotlight. So again, it does give these Ranger veterans a little bit of a breather in that regard. The other thing, just to go through some highlights here with both Rempe and also Adam Edstrom, they were mixing it up pretty much the entire game. You had in the second period, Keandre Miller took a shot from the point. You get a play stoppage, and then you get a scramble in front. Rempe's there, Goodrow's there. They're both whacking away at the puck, trying to get it into the net. Edstrom was nearby too. Neither one of them could score on this play, but there was a scrum afterward with both Rempe and Goodrow involved in that. And then not too long after this, Delorier kind of went back at Rempe, kind of grabbed him by the jersey and pulled him away. Wasn't sure if maybe we were going to get round two there. I'm sure the two of these, their paths will cross in the future, these two guys, Rempe and Delorier. But yeah, obviously, again, just a line with Goodrow, Edstrom, Rempe, these guys already willing and able to play physical hockey and mix it up quite a bit. Then the third period, Matt Rempe going in on the forecheck. He absolutely just hammered York into the boards on the forecheck. And then not too long after this, in fact, I think it was the same shift, you get Igor Shesterkin making a save on the other side of the rink. And once again, Rempe and Goodrow are in there. They're mixing it up with a couple of flyers. So Rempe, again, he's not out there for a ton of time, but it does seem like he finds a way to impact the game and be a noticeable player anytime he does get onto the ice. And in this game specifically, he ends up, of course, with the goal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. He was also a +1. Just 3 minutes and 46 seconds of ice time. And think about how much we're talking about him. That's crazy to watch this. He was only out there for 3:46 and yet impacted the game as much as he did, and even got to do the post-game interview as well. 2 out of his 3 of his face-offs, and somehow ends up with impacting the game. And I realize now I'm looking at the wrong section here. Let's go to his real time on the ice. His average time on the ice is what I just gave you. That's 3 minutes and 46 seconds so far for Rempe. In this game, it was 5 minutes and 16 seconds. And obviously, his average time on the ice is weighed down by the game where he got the match penalty. He was only out there for like 10 or 13 seconds, whatever it was. But again, he's not playing all that often. Nevertheless, still impacting the game in one way or another is Matt Rempe. And as far as the two of them sticking around, Edstrom and Rempe, I think it could happen in the short term. Like I said, I think this is very much kind of an open tryout for these two guys to claim these spots for the rest of the season and into the playoffs. Depending on how they do, that might influence whether Drury goes out there, tries to find a fourth-line player or not. One thing, though, that I'll mention, between Edstrom and Rempe, if the Rangers make a trade and one or the other has to come out of the lineup, I think right now it's going to be Edstrom. And it's not that he's done anything wrong, but Rempe is making this Ranger team. He's giving them a new dimension here where, they're kind of a feared team. And this guy is not to be messed with, man. He can fight with anybody in the NHL. We'll see if he keeps fighting at the clip that he's at right now for the rest of the season. But he was great in the post-game interview as well. He was asked about, everything that had happened. And he's saying things like, this is unreal. I'm having a blast. He said he likes to slide in there, bang bodies, go to the net. And he also mentioned that before the fight with Delorier, Delorier had challenged Rempe. He talked to Rempe first rather than the other way around. And per Rempe, his response to being challenged by Delorier was, hell yeah. He was just excited to get into another fight. So, yeah, we'll see. I think, whether or not he stays in the lineup for the rest of the season in the playoffs, eventually he's going to have to do more than just fight. Obviously, though, he scored a goal in this game. And, he also, got into the fight and was playing physical as he's been doing, for the entire first stretch of games here that he's been through. And of course, we got to talk about his game-winning goal. Obviously, there's a situation where he's in front of the net there, and we've got Goodrow passing the puck to Braden Schneider. Schneider with a shot from pretty far away. It deflects. It looked like it deflected off of a Flyer defender and then bounced off the inside of Rempe's left leg, bounced off the back of his right skate, and went into the net. Obviously, a little bit of a dirty goal there, a little bit of an ugly goal, but regardless, they all count. His first goal. Congratulations to Matt Rempe for that. They obviously got the puck for him. Kreider was on the ice when this happened, so Kreider mobbed him at that time. His teammates were pumping him up on the bench too. So, yeah, just great stuff all around from Rempe, and just excited to see where he takes this. Where does he go next? What happens with Rempe in this game against the Jackets? Does he get into another fight? Does he score another goal? I don't know, but I'm having a lot of fun watching him. And like I said, very impactful first couple of games for Matt Rempe. And just very curious to see if he's going to be able to hang on to this spot all the way through the rest of the season and the playoffs as well. So far, so good. He is making a case to stick in the lineup for the short term and the long term for the Rangers. We'll keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to talk about how the Rangers are, basically just finding ways to win throughout this entire awesome winning streak that they're on right now, 10 games in a row, and winning games in a lot of different ways. And I'll elaborate on that in just a second. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Camino Consulting. You've heard of our online families and couples and taken advantage of the Locked On 25% discount running to the end of the month. But what about the live seminars? In both sport and business, the challenge in differentiating candidates and recruits is an endless battle. Everyone can demonstrate their measurables and qualifications, but we all know it is the intangibles that matter when those things are similar. Contact Camino Consulting for their team and management seminars to get a peek behind the curtain and watch your next recruiting class or hiring group become one of the most effective that you've ever seen, both because you identified the right candidates and because you've learned how to communicate and motivate them in accord with their own preferences. But if you aren't in business management or working with a team, we pay referrals. Make some money making your workplace and favorite teams better. Every group works together better at the end of the year than in week one. So contact Camino Consulting at caminoconsulting.ca and get on the fast track to understanding. All right, we also just want to let everybody know that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming app channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, so we'll go ahead and keep everything rolling here. I do want to just give the Rangers some props for winning in a variety of different ways. It's hard to look at the Rangers right now, and I realize some of this is the byproduct of, winning 10 straight games, but it's hard to look at them right now and really figure out what the glaring weakness is. I know, the trade deadline's approaching, and we've all got our favorites. Oh, let's go get this guy. Let's go get that guy. You'd have to give up such and such for this guy. You don't have to give up such and such for that guy. They probably will make at least a couple of moves at the deadline. And, I think specifically top line right wing, maybe third line center, although Brodzinski's doing a heck of a job. So maybe just a center in general, somebody that can play the third line or the fourth line. But the thing that's just awesome for the Rangers right now is that they are winning in so many different ways throughout this win streak. And to get back to something that I mentioned briefly in the intro of this episode. So the Raiders in January were basically a bad team. They just didn't play well. They were finding ways to lose. And going into the All-Star break, they were really scuffling. And then you had that one game left before the All-Star break. The Rangers were at Ottawa, but that game didn't start very well. The Senators took a 2-0 lead against the Rangers. Rangers came storming back and won that game 7-2. And of course, that was the first win of this 10-game win streak that they're currently on. But imagine if I told you, like in the second period of that Senators game, that the Rangers not only were to come back and win this game, not only were going to score 7 unanswered goals to win this game 7-2, but that it was going to be the very start of a 10-game winning streak and counting for the New York Rangers, you would have thought I was insane. If you told me the same thing, I would have thought you were insane because things just weren't looking good. Now, I figured this team would eventually turn things around. There's too much talent. They're too good of a team to just, sputter for the entire rest of the regular season and basically limp into the playoffs. I never thought that would happen, but to do the 180 that they've done, truly a remarkable feat. And again, when you look at all these different wins that they've had, it's crazy how many different ways that they've won. I just mentioned the Senators game, scoring 7 unanswered goals. You score 7 straight goals in a game, you're usually going to win that game. Then you have a couple of barn burners against the Avalanche and the Lightning. They beat the Avalanche 2-1 in overtime. They beat the Lightning 3-1. Then they have a flirt with disaster, but still win the game win. That was in Chicago against the Blackhawks. They blew the 3-1 lead kind of late in the third period, recovered to win it in the overtime on a goal by Mika Zibanejad. They win a grinded-out game against the Flames. That's the out-of-nowhere rivalry that the Rangers have suddenly had with Calgary. I didn't really expect that a Ranger and Flame rivalry would kind of manifest itself over the last 2 seasons, but that's certainly what's happened. Then you had the game against the Canadiens, and, a little bit of shaky defense both ways, but the Rangers win a high-scoring game, 7-4. You get that legendary comeback against the Islanders, down by 3 goals in that game. They score 2 goals with the goalie pulled to tie it, goes to overtime. They win that game 6-5. And then, a handful of wins recently as well. The win against the Stars, you beat a first-place team. You beat a Devils team thoroughly in their building, a Devils team that we thought would be desperate and looking like they need to win. And that just wasn't the case. The Rangers skated circles around them the entire night. And then this game, the grinded out win against the Flyers, where, the Rangers, they got badly outshot in this game, but I still think that they were working hard. And obviously, Igor Shesterkin coming through in a big way. It's just very impressive how many different ways that they've won games lately. They're not solely relying on this player to carry them. They're not over-relying on Igor Shesterkin. I mean, in this last game, they kind of had Igor Shesterkin, kind of carrying them a little bit. I'll elaborate on that in just a second as well. But again, they're not relying on just one line. Early in the season, we had, the Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere line. It felt like for a while there, even when the Rangers were winning before they went into that slide in January, but certainly during the slide in January, that if that line didn't score, the Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere line, the Rangers weren't going to score. It was as simple as that. Everybody else was kind of scuffling at the same time. And obviously, that's not a recipe for success when you've got only one line that can do anything offensively. But now they have 3 lines that you feel pretty good about when they're on the ice, that they can create some offense. And even the 4th line ends up with the game-winning goal in this one. So maybe that line will start to get a little bit more offense as well. I don't think you can count on a line of Edstrom, Goodrow, and Rempe to produce big-time offensive fireworks night in and night out, but maybe at least that trio will do better than some other trios that we've seen make up the Ranger 4th line early in the season. So again, they're not relying on only one line. They're not over-relying on the power play. What's interesting to me is that the Ranger power play during a good chunk of this 10-game winning streak here was really scuffling. I think it got as bad as 1 for 22 at one point, and yet the Rangers kept winning anyway. So they're not over-relying on the power play. The power play has been picking it up a little bit recently. The PK has been solid all season. It continues to be solid for this Ranger team. They're mostly defending better, probably giving up a few too many shots on goal in recent games, but they're mostly tightening things up defensively. And honestly, I think some of the high shot totals in recent games is a little bit misleading, just because I feel like a lot of them, not all of them, but a good amount of them are from kind of low danger areas. And Igor's making some pretty easy saves on some of those. Something to keep an eye on going forward, though, as far as the high shot on goal totals. But again, they're getting contributions up and down the lineup right now, and that's obviously a good way to go. And the thing I keep coming back to as well, there just doesn't seem to be a glaring weakness on this team right now. Now, I mentioned a second ago, I was going to talk about Igor Shesterkin in more detail, and let's go ahead and do that. So in this game against the Flyers, outshot 40-24. Igor stops 39 of 40 shots, and he was money down the stretch in this game. Rangers obviously had to hang on to a 1-goal lead. They were under fire in the third period, back on their heels at least at times. The Flyers got a power play with 4 minutes to go in this game, had a couple of good chances, good looks at the net there as well. And Igor was up to the challenge in all these situations. And you look at what Igor's done recently, going to throw a couple of stats at you. First of all, his goals against average is down to 2.70, which for Igor isn't great, but you can live with that. That's not a bad goals against average, I wouldn't say. And it's obviously been trending in the right direction recently. It's a little bit more Igor-like. I think we can all agree on that than, flirting with the 3 goals against average. 6 straight wins for Igor. Obviously, that's that coincides with the Ranger win streak that they're on as a team right now. But Igor, in his 6 straight wins here, has given up 1 goal or less in 4 of those. And he has gone 3 straight games now where he has faced 40 or more shots in all of them. And in all 3 of those games, he has only allowed exactly 1 goal. So that's awesome. The stats are great, but you watch him play goalie. The athleticism is there. The reaction time is there. The confidence is there. The bluster is there. We saw Igor Shesterkin even try to mix it up a couple of times recently. Most recently, of course, being against Garnet Hathaway at the end of this game. The Flyers had the goalie pulled. They're looking for the equalizer. Igor makes the save and freezes the puck. You had Hathaway kind of whacking away, trying to get the puck loose, trying to knock it in. And Igor gets up and kind of gives him a shove with his glove and then shoves him in the chest. A little get together. I mean, there's part of me that almost thinks Igor's doing this a little bit too much recently, but I guess I'd rather have this than a goalie that, just stands there and takes it and doesn't stand up for himself. So good to see that. And he's taking a couple of shots at the empty net too. Obviously, he's a good puck handling goalie, and sooner or later he's going to get one. He hasn't been too far away recently. There was a situation in this game where he tried to shoot at the net. It was offline, and regardless, the Flyer defenseman was back there, and he gloved it down. But Igor obviously playing with a lot of confidence right now, and leading the Rangers to some big-time wins against some tough teams in some tough environments. Obviously, Philly not the easiest place to play, and the Rangers go in there, take care of business in a low-scoring, grinded-out game. And Igor Shesterkin, obviously, the biggest reason why, or one of the biggest reasons why, the Rangers were able to do just that. So, in just a second, we're going to keep everything going here. Going to talk about an unsung hero from this game. Also going to talk a little bit about the Blue Jackets and also where the Rangers stand right now in the standings. I got some news that might make the people that think the President's Trophy is cursed, might make them a little bit nervous. But we'll get into all that in just a second. We'll talk about Alexis Lafreniere as well. And like I said, we'll do that in just a minute. First, though, we definitely want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Sleeper. It is past the halfway point of the season, Ranger fans, and the Rangers are kicking butt lately, obviously on the aforementioned 10-game winning streak. But regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Panarin or Igor or Lafreniere or Kreider will end up with more or less stats than things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me, Ranger fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, so to toss out an unsung hero for the Rangers in this game, I'm actually going to go with Barclay Goodrow. I thought he was out there grinding. Like I said, this was a physical, at times nasty game. It felt like he was kind of in the middle of a lot of different things. And not just, the physicality. There were some other plays that he made as well. He also ended up with a secondary assist in this game. Didn't really affect the play that much, but he at least got the puck to Braden Schneider for Schneider to take the shot. Schneider shot. And then, of course, Rempe deflected it home. But Goodrow at least got the puck to where it needed to be on that play. But he was making plays. There was a big-time clear made by Barclay Goodrow on the Flyers' final power play of the afternoon. That was in the third period. Less than 4 minutes to go. Flyers down by a goal, looking for the equalizer. And the Flyers gained the blue line. Barclay Goodrow made a really nice play to stand up his guy, get control of the puck, and immediately just fire it down the rink and out of harm's way there. He was out there for a long time during this penalty kill. Hung tough, was pressuring the puck, disrupted a pass during this whole sequence as well. And then he was out there with less than a minute to go in the game. He ends up blocking a shot with about 35 seconds or so to go. You never know what happens. I mean, if that puck gets on net, maybe it ends up getting by Igor somehow. Igor was very good in this game. But like I said, you never know. He was also, during this final minute here, pressuring the puck at the top of the Rangers zone. He also knocked it away from the Flyers in the neutral zone. The Rangers got the puck into the Flyer zone. Flyers start to bring it up, and Goodrow disrupted them there too. So Goodrow was all over the place here. And then Rangers got a little bit lucky after the Flyers got a little bit lucky, because basically what happened, the Flyers took a slap shot. We're down to like 6 or 7 seconds at this point. It goes wide, but it bounces off of the backboards, comes right in front, and Couturier is there, and he's looking to bury the rebound, and almost did, but he put it off the near post. Puck goes into the corner. Goudreau goes over there and gets it. There's only about 4 seconds to go at this point in the game, but basically he just stands there with the puck. There's not really any Flyers near him. The Flyers eventually get to him. They're hitting him. They're trying to get the puck away from him, and he's able to grind out the clock there. So good stuff all around from Barclay Goodrow. I know there's times he comes under fire from Ranger fans, but the one thing I don't think anybody can take away from him is that this guy puts on his hard hat and he goes to work every single night. So nice to see him making some plays, some good defensive plays down the stretch here. He's due for a goal. I mean, it's got to be coming sooner or later here, right? He had double-digit goals for the Rangers last season. Somehow only has one this year, but also nice to see him get rewarded with at least a point. Like I said, he got the secondary assist on the Rempe goal. And overall, just a blue-collar effort from Barclay Goodrow in what was mostly a blue-collar game. And just kind of a reminder that, you could say that he's overpaid and this, that, and the other thing, but Barclay Goodrow does positively impact this team, at least from time to time. And the other thing I want to mention, Alexis Lafreniere, I mean, the kid has arrived. I don't even think it's up for debate anymore. You can say about how, like, oh, well, he benefits from playing with Panarin, but there's nothing wrong with that. There's obviously a lot of young players, highly touted young players that have come into the league and gotten a boost from playing with this superstar or that superstar. Alexis Lafreniere, just the latest example of this. But it's funny because he actually came very close to scoring in the second period of this game and was absolutely robbed on the doorstep. Brodzinski got the puck down to him, and Lafreniere tried to, I believe, backhand at home, was not able to do so. Just an excellent pad save there by Ersson. And not too long after this, Lafreniere gets another chance. It's 4-on-4. The Rangers go with Trocheck, Gustafsson, Miller, and Lafreniere. And you've got K'Andre Miller. He gets to the blue line, leaves it for Trocheck. Trocheck makes some nifty moves, gets through the neutral zone, gets the Flyer blue line, does Trocheck, and then passes back and to his left to Lafreniere. And Lafreniere basically just shoots and scores. He wasn't really at like a super high danger area on the rink. I'm not sure if maybe he caught the goalie by surprise there. Maybe. Kind of interesting that he scored here, though, and not on the one where he was absolutely robbed just a minute or two before that. But obviously very encouraging that Lafreniere stuck with it and ended up scoring a goal during the 4-on-4 here. And that's his 6th goal in the last 10 games. Alexis Lafreniere has arrived in a big, big way. And it's just awesome to see. And obviously that line all season has been there for the Rangers. They've just done amazing work. Once again, Lafreniere, Panarin, and Trocheck. So that kind of leads us into tonight's matchup. They're going to be starting a little early. Make a note. The Rangers and Jackets will drop the puck at 6 p.m. rather than the typical 7 p.m. start time. Elvis Merzlikins has been announced as the starting goalie for the Jackets. And when I pushed record here, I did not see that the Rangers had announced a starting goalie. I would think that it's probably going to be Jonathan Quick getting this start. Eventually, you want to get him back out there. And obviously, the second game of a back-to-back is a good time to do that. So I'm, kind of looking through Twitter right now. I don't see anybody announcing anything as far as the Rangers starting goalie, but my money would be on Jonathan Quick. We'll see how the Rangers look to play it when the puck drops a little bit later here today. I also wanted to do a quick standings check. I mean, you guys can check the standings on your own, but there's a couple of interesting notes going on right now as far as, where the Rangers stand right now compared to the other teams in this league. So if I can just go ahead, bring up the standings real quick here. Obviously, the Rangers in first place in the Metro Division. They were still in first even before this 10-game winning streak started. So obviously, they're still there. The Rangers have 81 points. The interesting development here is that they are now in first place, tied with the Bruins in the Eastern Conference. Both teams have 81 points. The Rangers, though, have played 58 games. The Bruins have played 59. So the Rangers have a game in hand on the Bruins and basically control their own destiny as far as the top team in the Eastern Conference. And the only team in the NHL that has more points than the Rangers right now is the Vancouver Canucks. But the Canucks have played 2 more games than the Rangers. The Canucks have 82 points. The Rangers have 81. So like I said, the Rangers control their own destiny as far as finishing on top of this entire league at the end of the regular season and winning the President's Trophy. Now, I know a lot of people are superstitious about the President's Trophy. I get it. It seems like some teams have really kind of stumbled that have won the President's Trophy. And it's been a while since a President's Trophy winner has also won the Stanley Cup. But to me, you can't be afraid of that. If you win the President's Trophy, you've got home ice advantage the entire way, and I don't think that that's a bad thing. The Rangers, they're 20-7 at home. They're 19-9-3 on the road, so not dramatic splits one way or the other, but everything else being equal, I think you want to be at home. I think you want Madison Square Garden rocking, and that'll certainly be the case. And as far as the Rangers go, when they won the Stanley Cup in 94, they were also the President's Trophy winners. So again, to me, it's not really something to be afraid of. It's something that should be embraced. It's not the end all be all, obviously, but to me, it's another notch in the belt. And if you're playing well going into the season or going into the postseason, then I think that's certainly a good thing. It's not something to be afraid of. So yeah, good stuff. Rangers are in a good spot. The other one note that I want to make about where the Rangers are in the standings, if you look at the Metro, Rangers, as I said, in first place, 81 points. The Canes are 8 points behind the Rangers. The Canes do have a game in hand, but they're 8 points behind the Rangers. And then you've got the Flyers. The Flyers right now are 14 points behind the Rangers. They've both played the same amount of games. So barring something completely unforeseen and unexpected, it's very difficult to imagine a scenario where the Rangers, in an absolute worst case scenario, do not at least have home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. The Canes are 8 points behind the Rangers. They're a good team. You never know. They could get hot. Maybe they make a run at it. But even if the Canes were to pass the Rangers, it's hard to envision the Rangers sliding further than second place. And if you finish in first or second in your division, you have home ice advantage in the first round. So just kind of a note as far as where the Rangers are in the standings. But yeah, here we are, man. We are 2 wins away against the Blue Jackets in both games from the Rangers going undefeated in the month of February. And again, if I told you that at the end of January, you'd have thought I was absolutely crazy that the Rangers would be in a situation like that. But here we are. Rangers obviously have done a complete 180 and playing some great hockey, and hopefully continues a little bit later today. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.